Let's talk about anaerobic coffee. Anaerobic coffee is a buzzword in the specialty coffee industry. It's been thrown around a lot. You'll see it on a lot of bags. You'll see it, you'll hear about it when you talk to a barista. It is essentially, when we talk about anaerobic coffees, we're talking about coffees that have been fermented without oxygen, so removing the oxygen. Now, if you know a little bit about fermentation actually happens in the absence of oxygen. So it is a little bit of a misnomer. However, for roasters, when we talk about it, we are talking about a process that has been done without oxygen, but it implies that there's a certain level of care that has been taken to ferment that coffee in a certain way, in a controlled environment, to produce a flavor profile that is exciting. And so that is why the industry is all abuzz with excitement around this buzzword. But let's talk about how this impacts coffee farmers. Now, the specialty coffee world is a small world. The roasters like us, we talk to our partners, our producing partners, and we tell them like, oh, I tasted this really good anaerobic coffee and it was fantastic. And so what happens is that it's like a game of telephone. This gets passed down and people get excited about it. And they're like, I want to produce these great coffees that this person is talking about. And so they start experimenting with anaerobic coffees. Now, when well done, anaerobic coffees can be truly amazing. However, they are difficult to produce. We have partners that have invested thousands of dollars and hundreds of hours into developing ways of anaerobically fermenting coffee that are really good. They have big stainless steel tanks, they have pH meters, temperature meters, they rotate these tanks so that you get even fermentation throughout the lot, and they've spent a lot of time and money to develop these. Now, what happens though when we pass along just the snippet of like, oh, I tried an anaerobic coffee and it was great, and somebody tries to implement that on their farm, what happens to them? Like they have to take a risk without any of the knowledge that backs it up to produce a completely different coffee on their farm. And so what ends up happening is they'll experiment and they'll take a bunch of coffee and they'll put it in a plastic bag or a bin without, and try to remove oxygen from it and ferment it, and they call it anaerobic coffee, which is true. And what happens is that oftentimes they get caught with this coffee because the coffee turns out, say, vinegary, or turns out to be, papery and tasteless. They are taking that risk to develop something to satisfy our kind of marketing buzz. Farmers are smart people. They will figure it out. They will, through trial and error, discover a process of their own that works for them. But currently, I don't think we are, in my opinion, and I'd love to hear your opinions on this, but I don't feel like we are taking enough responsibility for disseminating this knowledge around like what is required to produce a good anaerobically fermented coffee, as well as putting it in context. After all, anaerobic coffees are just another way of saying that something has been fermented, and all coffees undergo fermentation in their processing. Anaerobic coffee is another way of processing coffee. It is not the solution to all of our problems. Yes, it can be good, but so can other processes. So I would love to hear your opinion on this. Please start a discussion. Let me know what you think. This is something that I've been mulling for a while.